Welcome back, everyone. Look at this beautiful terrain this amazing tracked vehicle is punching through right now. This is actually the Beowulf version of the BvS10. Yes, we've all seen these unique and somewhat peculiar tracked fighting vehicles all around the world. And myself, I've actually operated them in Afghanistan, and they have some mixed opinions. The original vehicles that I worked with were the Vikings. The Vikings were the sort of less armoured, less advanced capabilities of what the future vehicles were known as Warthogs. And, being attached with the Royal Marines, working with these vehicles, they had their own ups and downs, trials and tribulations of the vehicles. But overall, a fantastic off-roading capable vehicle that can do just about anything in terms of terrain and getting across terrain. However, at times, they still needed a little pick-me-up from the Warrior, which, of course, is the epicenter of tracked capability in Afghanistan, because I truly do feel that the Warrior was a game-changer in the battlefield, and we did have to pull quite a few of these vehicles out of some tricky situations, because the drivers did push them a little bit too hard on their limits, especially going across wadis in some of these farmers' fields, and overall, though, the Viking vehicle was fantastic in Afghanistan. Speaking of Vikings, I'm a bit more of a Roman kind of guy, but today's video is sponsored by Viking War of Clans. Vikings War of Clans is an addictive and fun strategy battle game that brings in-depth and engaging gameplay to your fingertips, whether you're relaxing at home or patrolling around in your own Viking BvS10. I enjoy the game personally for its in-depth options for battling with multiple types of units against a host of players and clans that are online in the Viking world. I also find that the game's in-depth choice of how you can win against other clan leaders is the most fun portion of this game. Whether it's all-out warfare and you just want to go all out, or get involved with resource building to make a stronger economy and clan, you will find a lot of options to move you and your clan up in tiers. And speaking of tiers, the game is also growing in its own tier of experience, with Vikings War of Clans celebrating its 7th anniversary. For 7 years now, hundreds and thousands of clans have been fighting for the right to be considered the most worthy and the best commanders. To celebrate this awesome achievement for the 7th anniversary, the game is getting a huge update this month, including the new added Jotunheim feature. Jotunheim is a world of giants and eternal ice, so it's fitting for Vikings to really be battling there. When you relocate to Jotunheim during the legendary competition, you'll be able to take part in the Battle of the Throne and Fight of the Monsters of Jotunheim for coffers of trophies. There will also be 3 birthday monster events, blitz competitions every 2 days, and boost for new players up to 20% each week. Don't miss out, folks. Check the link in my description box below to be part of this fantastic game. Help support my channel by downloading Vikings for free only from my links in the description box, and become a hero of the exciting events in the world of Vikings. Don't forget to look me up under my nickname, Matsimus. So let's get back to talking about this rather peculiar but very interesting looking tracked vehicle. The Swedish Bandvagn Skyddad 10 is a very unique fighting vehicle. And you're probably wondering, well, why is it so unique, Matt, other than its looks? Well, its capabilities are literally second to none in terms of its, off-roading and mobility in the battlefield, whether it's heavy deep snow like we're looking at right now, or as I mentioned, Afghanistan with the sand, mud, thick wadis, or even amphibious, complete swimming. This thing is completely amphibious with a few modifications, but it's an incredible piece of kit. The Swedish Bandvagn Skyddad 10, also known as the BvS10, is a tracked, articulated, all-terrain armoured vehicle. And instead of the standard famous Swedish meatballs, these are Swedish meat cubes. These vehicles were manufactured by Sweden's BAE Systems Land Systems Hagglunds. The UK British Armed Forces used this vehicle as the all-terrain vehicle, or ATV, known as Viking and otherwise known as the Warthog. It was originally created as a collaboration between Industries of Hagglunds Vehicle AB and the British Ministry of Defence (MOD) on behalf of the Royal Marines Commandos. The Swedish-British vehicle has tracks large enough to handle cold or muddy terrain that most military vehicles would find very inaccessible. The BvS10 is armoured yet light enough to swim, and I quote swim because it is very slow at doing so, through streams or by churning slowly across ridges on its tracks. It can be fitted with heavy machine guns or any kind of weapon system really in the cupola atop. And the smoke grenade launchers provide it with the protection necessary to the front and to the sides, and you can basically expand modules onto the top of this thing as much as you want to, including some very nasty fragmentation grenades if you really wanted to. The BvS10 armoured all-terrain vehicle is proven as a workhorse in combat circumstances, offering the ideal combination of mobility, payload, and protection. It was created to provide entire operational support in situations where other vehicles really just couldn't do it, especially in some of the nastiest terrain you can imagine. You can see some of this footage of how deep the snow is, and of course the Swedish really do know how to handle snow, and when you look at this vehicle trundling through the snow, it has absolutely no concerns. And the same actually applied in Afghanistan when they went through the sand. You would expect the tracked vehicles can go through the sand very easily. You'd be amazed at how easy it can be for a heavy tracked vehicle to get bogged down in sand, but with these wide, big, heavy duty tracks, they provide fantastic traction, and the way in which they articulate across ridges with that sort of pivot point in the middle allows it to not bottom out. Now, the operational history of this vehicle is quite interesting. Originally dubbed, as I mentioned, the Viking by the British Royal Marines, the BvS10 underwent significant trials and development from 2001 to 2004. This development was overseen by Major Gers Hermer, MBE Royal Marines, before the Royal Marines accepted about 108 of them into service. These deliveries began in 2005. The Royal Marines Armoured Combat Support Company used the vehicles for the first time in Afghanistan in 2006, before the formation of the Royal Marines Armoured Support Group in December 2007. Now, as I mentioned, I was attached with the Royal Marines Commando in 2008 with these vehicles, and they really did have a strong fascination for how amazingly good they were at going across the nastiest wadis. And a wadi is basically a riverbed, right? The mud is thick, it is nasty, normally about 2 to 3 feet deep due to the water just slowly segregating itself into the fine particles of the almost like talcum powder like sand. It's nothing like you've ever seen before. If you're an avid off-roader, you'll see that, you know, crossing a wadi is just an impossibility, but these things could do it, and the Royal Marines were just baffled by how well they could do what they needed to do. And when the Royal Marines relieved the parachute regiment in Helmand Province at the end of summer 2006, 33 British Vikings were equipped with slat armour and fully deployed. Interestingly, because the vehicle's low ground pressure was insufficient to activate some of the more old-school anti-tank mines used in the Afghanistan war, the BvS10 was later modified with high levels of armor protection on the underbelly. One of the big upgrades for Warthog was a more reinforced superstructure underneath, because I will say, unfortunately, I do know of troops that were lost in action in these vehicles. They're certainly not, in terms of protection, fully designated to withstand full-blown IEDs or shaped charges or explosives on the underbelly. It's not a V-shaped hull. It is basically, as I said, a Swedish meat cube, and there is a lot of blast wave being absorbed by the underbelly. So a lot of upgrades were made to protect the crew more in the vehicle. However, it was still very susceptible to IEDs, and as I said, you know, it's very unfortunate. I do know members of the Royal Marines and of other units that have used these vehicles that unfortunately lost lives in them. That's not saying, though, that the vehicle is not fantastic at what it can do. It's just the reality is it wasn't really destined to be a vehicle to withstand extreme levels of IED blasts. Now, the BvS10's working capabilities are also fascinating. The design prioritizes versatility, allowing commanders and users to tailor the vehicle to individual tasks. The large space conveniently accommodates the installation of interchangeable equipment and hardware via what's called C-rail system, and preparing it for the demanding needs of the enhanced tactical maneuvers. The vehicle can be equipped as an ambulance, an armoured personnel carrier, a crew support weapon, i.e. just putting as much heavy weapon systems as you can on top of it, a flatbed, missile launcher, mortar tube carrier, artillery carrier, remote weapon station system, command post, repair and recovery. It's fantastic for being modular. You can take the back portion off, modify it however you want, and there is a lot of space in the back of these things. I've been inside them, I've operated with them, worked with them, driven in them, patrolled in them. They are great vehicles. There's a lot of room inside of them, and they're actually a lot of fun to drive. It's kind of a unique way of driving with a steering wheel, but it's a lot of fun to drive. But some of the key features of that modularity is the adaptability of new things and changes that you can put on it at any one time. For instance, adaptable weapon systems. It can be outfitted with a range of guns from 5.56mm, 12.7mm, 50 cals, 40mm, you name it, this thing can host it. It gives enhanced control. There's a large power capacity, allowing electronic command and control systems to be integrated without problem, and it's been tested to ensure that it complies with all common electromagnetic capability standards or jamming or EMF frequencies that could be used. In a mortar configuration, it is loaded with ammo too, so you could take this thing as basically a standalone artillery platform and punch rounds down all range all day. One of the key attributes of this vehicle is it's fulfilling future needs. It's well positioned to fulfill future requirements with a payload capability of up to 6 tons and a load volume of 2.5 cubic meters plus 6.5 cubic meters on the deck. It's trusted support as well. Let's be very honest with you folks. CV90, which is my favorite infantry fighting vehicle in the world, produced by the same people, right? The BvS10 is designed with the high dependability and minimal lifespan costs in mind, and it's simple to maintain and operate. There's not a huge amount of work to be done with this thing. I do know some of the crews that worked in the Royal Tank Regiment that were attached with this thing again in Afghanistan. In terms of maintenance of this thing compared to a Challenger 2, it's second to none. In terms of the vehicle's design, it's made up of 2 track link components that can be vertically and horizontally controlled for steering and maneuvering across some of the most nasty, rugged terrains. In all situations, all 4 tracks drive constantly, delivering maximum traction effort. There is the Soucy International of Quebec, Canada, represent, providing the rubber track systems, which of course are fantastic both off-road and on-road. There's nothing worse than having high-speed tracks of that size and that width hitting the ground in a metal configuration. Those sort of plastic rubberized tracks make a lot more sense. The body is made of armored steel, not aluminum, and the profile's rounded edges and smooth contours help to reduce the radar cross-section for any ground-based radar surveillance. The architecture of the vehicle allows for upgrades in the installation of modular systems to meet specific operating needs such as add-on armor and a variety of different weapon mounts, cage armor, etc. There can even be load changes and standard cargo platforms, installing of cranes and such. In terms of its armor, it's not designed to be a very heavily armored vehicle. In most regard, it's a reconnaissance or troop transport. It's not there to go frontline towards, heavy armored battle groups, and the same applies for, as I mentioned before, with IEDs. But just look at the terrain this thing can chew through. I mean, that is some thick, nasty mud, and a lot of mud that is moving through there with a lot of weight, and it has no issue. And the same applies for going across things like urban terrain. It has no problems cutting across, concrete land like this, or vehicles, or roadblocks, etc., giving it just the mobility capability of nothing I've ever seen before in tracked armored fighting vehicles around the world. The vehicle's armor, though, is super fragile. It can prevent from 7.62mm armor-piercing bullets and projectile fragments of 152mm artillery shells fired around the distance of more than 10 meters close to it. The vehicle is designed to protect against some anti-personnel mines with a 0.5 kilogram charge, which isn't a huge amount. But what keeps this beautiful little green goblin running around in the field? Well, it's powered by a Cummins 5.9-litre inline 6-cylinder turbo diesel engine that produces about 250 brake horsepower. Not too bad, in all honesty, considering how fast it can go off-road and the amount of torque it can push on that heavy-duty snow and mud. At about 1600 RPM, the maximum torque is about 840 Newton meters, which is pretty good. Both the back and front cabins have differentials and final drives on the Allison MD 3560 with 6 forward plus 1 reverse speed automatic transmission. For the BvS Hagglunds designed new sprockets, new tracks, road wheels and chassis and suspension for the more, I would say, civilian application Beowulf design. Now, the vehicle is quite unique in the way in which it steers. It uses hydraulic rams to articulate the front and rear cabs in reaction to the driver's inputs when steering is provided. Steering eliminates the need for one track to be braked, as the other tracked vehicles would normally do, giving the vehicle the advantage in boosting its capabilities in the snow, sand and soft ground. This is allowing all 4 tracks to travel at the same speed and increasing that differential to the amount of torque you're going to get and the amount of surface area you're using at any one time. The fully laden weight of this vehicle is 10 tons. However, the BvS10 maintains exceptional mobility on soft terrain such as snow and mud and sand because the uniform load distribution across those 4 tracks reduces the ground pressure. The tracks are around 620mm wide and made of molded rubber with a metal cord through them to increase its strength. The mean maximum ground pressure is roughly the same as that of a 4-ton lighter BV206 vehicle. Even if a mine damages a track, the vehicle can still remain mobile, with some of the track being blown off. To improve its cross-country capabilities, the ground clearance of the BvS10 was actually significantly enhanced over the BV206 family of vehicles. The turning circle has a diameter of 14 meters. The vehicle can also ford up to 1.5 meters in depth without any preparation at all, and is totally amphibious and capable of swimming in deeper water only after about 2 minutes of preparation, which includes plugging holes and installing a front vane to prevent a bow wave washing over the front windows. There's nothing worse than you actually turning into a submarine. The vehicle's speed in water is a fairly slow 5 kilometers an hour, but considering you're hosting about 10 tons walking through the water, that's pretty good. The vehicle can be launched from any Royal Marines landing ship and transported to operational locations by a C-130 or C-17 Globemaster. The vehicle can also be underslung and carried by Chinooks, and normally only when empty though. The vehicle can be broken into 2 halves and carried by the Merlin helicopter in just 20 minutes, which is a very, very impressive turnaround time for airborne forces that be operating these vehicles potentially in areas that are very remote and snowy, such as Sweden or other Arctic nations, that can allow this vehicle to be picked up by helicopter and dropped off somewhere else. On level terrain, the Viking's speed is comparable to that of a modern infantry fighting vehicle, and it can exceed a speed normally of about 50 km an hour on a flat Class A highway, or 35 km an hour with the specialised tracks. There can also be 15 km an hour cross-country capability at very nasty terrain, and we're talking about thick mud. On metalled roads, the range is around 300 kilometers. The cabins in the front and the back house the driver on the left, as well as 3 fully armed Marines or soldiers. In the back cab, or the back cube, or meat cube as I would say, is 6 more troops. There are 2-way voice communication units that connect both the front and back cabins, and the back cabin can accommodate normally about 8 fully fitted soldiers that are not as heavily outfitted as some of the standardized Marines or heavy duty troops that would be out there. Alternatively though, the rear compartment can also be used to transport a mortar section, heavy machine gun section, or a fully equipped anti-tank detachment such as Javelin, or the heavy duty Laws that we have, along with Milan anti-army missiles for back in the day. And both cabins surprisingly have air conditioning. The vehicle does have an interactive hostile soldier detection system that can be installed, almost like a somewhat radar or self-defense system that can be activated in event of an attack or an ambush, because this vehicle surprisingly doesn't have a huge amount of visibility other than the crews in the front and the cupola on the top. So it is at prone risk to being ambushed because there's not a lot of visibility outside this vehicle. The machine gun does give it a little bit of protection, but for the most part, the armoured glass is very, very thick. We're talking about 2.5 inches thick, being able to withstand up to a 50 caliber round, which is pretty significant, to be honest with you. There are many variants of this vehicle, to be honest with you, and it's a significantly larger opportunity for companies out there, or militaries out there that may want to use this in different configurations or tactical bounds. The main differences though between the older BV206s are that more powerful Cummins 5.9 litre engine and the improved ground clearance, along with the newly developed chassis, powertrain and steering units to provide the vehicle with that significantly improved speed from the previous 51.5 kilometers an hour on road, and the comfort on road as well. I mean, having comfort inside a vehicle like this, if you're going across really nasty terrain, which is what it's designed to do, is a game changer. To improve the situational awareness, the BvS10 APC was provided to Australia and Austria with a 360-degree observation system with 6 infrared cameras and monitors. The APC also has the remote weapons control system, which basically allows you to use the 50 cal without putting a crew member on top. It's now available in 4 varieties in the UK: the troop carrying transport variant, which basically is just an infantry carrier, the command variant, the repair and recovery variant, and the ambulance variant. The RRV carries rear HIAB cranes with a very good mobile workshop that I would love to have worked with the Remy. We never had them, unfortunately, back then, but it has an air compressor, a 9-ton crane, a winch, and hydraulic anchors, which is really, really cool. In all honesty, though, the final thoughts of this vehicle is that the development of this Swedish beauty was based operationally on a proven capability of the BV206 or BV206S, and in about 40 countries now, there's around 11,000 of these in use. It's been even more upgraded to more powerful engines, it's larger and faster, and in the grand scheme of things, folks, this is one of the best off-roading tracked vehicles you're ever going to find. I mean, I've seen what these things can do up close, and driving these things, operating them, it is incredible. And it really goes to show that when it comes to going into sort of really nasty snowy terrains or places where you think, yeah, there's nothing going to get through that, there is, and this thing can do it. And the fact that it can swim too is, to me, really, really good, because you can go just about anywhere with it. Now, it's not the most protected thing in the world, but it doesn't need to be. It's not designed to be. It's designed to be highly mobile and get wherever you want it to go. And I would happily trust myself with this vehicle here in Canada in some of the deep snows and Arctic conditions that we sometimes get, because it has a really nice heating system inside of there. It's reliable, good engine, a good powertrain, and it's basically like a workhorse, like a pack mule if necessary in the environments it's put in. So I'd love to hear your opinion on this, folks. Please leave me your comments in the comment section below. And again, make sure you go check out that link in the description box below for Vikings War of Clans. And I will see you on the video next time. Please click the little like button, and of course click that little bell by the notification button there, so you can be given notifications of when to